Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our next guest is a Nigerian businessman, economist, writer, and a politician. He is the founder and CEO of Global Analytics Consulting Limited, an international consulting firm with its headquarters in Abuja, Nigeria. As a political reformer, he founded the Abundant Nigerian Renewal Party, and he's the national chairman of the party. He has authored various columns in newspapers and has written 4 books. Here to discuss the economy and his presidential bid in the 2019 general election is Tope Fasua. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Welcome to the morning show.
Hi, Tope.
Morning,
good to see you.
Uncle Ruben. Nice to see you. Yeah.
You have such an impressive...
Nowhere near Dr. Ruben here, you know.
Okay.
But again, I've written 6 books, not 4.
You've written 6 books?
Grace, yes.
All
Well,
right.
let's start with this presidential ambition.
Okay.
Why do you want to be president of Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Because of the urgency of now, because at 47, I'm going to be 47 in a few days, realize that we can't just keep waiting and expecting that someone is going to do the work or do it right. Also because we've given a lot of people the opportunity to do it. And you know what they say about that work that nobody does. Everybody can do the work. Someone thinks somebody else is going to do the work. Never gets done. So, and I think that my generation, what we can bring to the table, and what I'm bringing to the table is something like, you know, fact and figures-based kind of leadership, a sense of urgency, a lot of myth-busting, you know, like thinking about that doesn't exist and asking why not, you know. And also, of course, a kind of systems kind of thinking, as well as attention to details, which we haven't seen, you know. My generation were connected, we're somewhere in between. We're connected with the Generation Z. Maybe I think that's where you belong, you know. And also, we also are connected with our history. And I think this is the time for us to step up. And of course, all over the world, you can see there's this kind of affinity for younger leaders, you know, who can communicate, who are not, quote unquote, lifeless, you know. So, and of course, you can see that going on in Canada, in France, and so on. So, but I think the most important thing is about the ideas. These are the ideas that I've actually expanded over a period of time and written in books, in columns, and so on. But this time around, we said, why not? You know, let's get involved and mainstream these ideas. And I'm actually telling Nigerians, I'm not all about the power, but already I think I've won, because I can assure Nigerians that by our involvement, by my involvement, and the kind of things that are mainstream, one thing we'll achieve is that the 2019 budget for Nigeria will be at least 12 trillion naira. One of my research, which I'm mainstreaming, is to compare budget levels even in African countries with Nigeria. And shockingly to find that, you know, we have one of the lowest budget levels in the world, and of course in Africa. Per capita budget in Nigeria, the federal budget is $140. It's ridiculous. We're talking of Nigeria is budgeting $25 billion this year. The budget for the city of Johannesburg alone, Johannesburg, you know, in South Africa, the budget for that city, which has less than 1 million population, is about $6 billion this year alone. Budget for the whole of South Africa itself, the federal budget for South Africa is $155 billion, and Nigeria is budgeting $25 billion. So if we keep on repeating that to let people know, we're going to force a conversation and get our people to start thinking that no matter who gets there in 2019, Nigeria must change positively going forward.
Let me try to begin to unbundle some of the things you have said. You made the point about young leaders coming to the fore. But we've also had a guest on this program who said, look, it's not about being young. Most of the people who have been in charge of Nigeria have been young people.
When they start.
And that people can be young and they have no good ideas.
Absolutely.
And they are incompetent.
Absolutely.
But, you know, you kept stressing young leaders, as in France, as in Canada.
No, it's just one of the things. It's just one of them. And it does matter because, again, it's actually the age of people's ideas that matter, you know. However, you know, there's this, if we go back to O-level mathematics, we draw a Venn diagram, and you can see somewhere in the nexus that if someone is maybe a bit young, is likely, you know, going to be active and passionate. It is said, one of the sayings I like to repeat the most, that passion is the sin of youth. pride is the sin of middle age, and prejudice is the sin of old age. What it means is that most young people will be passionate, but they can misuse it as well. And of course, like you rightly said, we have a few young people in the fray who have also not actually represented the so-called youth properly, because some of them are even quite criminal in tendencies, you know. So that's not it. But yeah, what we're looking at now is that Nigeria needs to move forward finally. I think the most important thing right now is that we cannot just rest on our oars, believing that someone is going to fix this country for us. And again, some of us are parents already. I have a daughter in the university, for crying out loud. You know, one is going to be a grandfather very soon. Are we going to wait for someone's great-grandfather? And like you rightly said, you know, I mean, we have people in the fray right now who got involved in politics and in so-called nation building since they were in their 20s, some in their 30s, including the president. But they never leave, you know. So how do you force them to leave? They're not going to come and hand you the power on a platter and say, hey, oh, we love your face, and oh, you guys are too much and all of that. You've got to step up. Step up and say, I'm interested, and mainstream your ideas, which is most important. It has to be about the ideas. I mean, you see, I'm holding something. I'm the only aspirant in all of those people that have been coming out that have done any document like this, 28 pages. I was talking to Weiber before he came. I think, did I get the name right?
Yes, yes.
Dr. Boa. I was speaking to him just before he came on. And, you know, I said, what do you do? He says, talking about mini-grids and micro-grids and so on. And I showed him something in this one that this is exactly what we're talking about. And we're discussing why have we never in this country thought about things like alternative energy, mini-grids, micro-grids, you know, starting small and scaling up. Why have we always been importing power systems which we cannot manage? Nigeria is losing 2,000 megawatts. According to Minister Fasua, 2,000 megawatts, all right, every day in what they call stranded energy. And according to Mekantibaru, the GMD of NNPC, we're losing almost the same amount in strandred gas. Well, it's ridiculous. So you can see the kind of way the thinking is changing.
Still on the issue of young leaders. Now we have about 42 or so persons.
More than that. You're probably like 70.
Who want to be a president of Nigeria, and you are one of them. And you are one of those persons who came together and formed a group called Presidential Aspirants Coming Together, PACT. And at the end of the day, there was an election, there was a consensus, so to speak, which chose Fela Durotoye.
Okay.
And some persons walked away and said, I'm no longer part of it.
Yeah.
Are you still part of PACT, or you are one of those persons
I actually
who walked
away much earlier, you know, because I gave them, when we had the first meeting, you know, this kind of thing, people say, oh, let's come together, and it's great to come together. You don't want to show that maybe you are proud or anything, or, you know, everybody wants Nigeria to move forward. So I got that call that day. And then I went and we attended the first meeting. In the evening of that day, we went and saw Charlie Boy. Charlie Boy said he wanted to see, oh, it's our area father, someone we respect a lot. So we went there and we were asked, you know, okay, how do we proceed from here? And I remember I told them very clearly that this, I think, are the procedures. I mean, it was perhaps the moment of epiphany for me. I said, listen, what I think we should do is this. Number one, expand this group. We're just about 14. There are more than 60 people running around the place. If you don't go and bring them in, whatever you decide here, they will tell you you didn't let them know, and they will continue. So it's useless, whatever it is you're doing. Number two, that you should take this to the public, right? Take it to the public. Let the public see our meetings. Maybe our next meeting and the meeting after, put it on Facebook Live. Let the people say, oh, that's Fela Durotoye, that's Tope Fasua, that's Shore, and so on. You know, and you know, so do that. Number three, put a clause there that people can leave only up to a certain extent, and let people sign, so that anybody that leaves after that point in time will be shown up to be, look, you don't have integrity. You know, and I said, look, number four, let's have debates. All right, let's have open debates, pair people together, because again, it should be about what are you offering the Nigerian people, not because you're fine or you're young or whatever. You know, what are you bringing to the table? You know, and lastly, that where necessary, we may have to have an election before an election. Let the Nigerian public choose who they want. So this would have had a very broad buy-in, and we would have had a scenario where where you'd have actually changed the narrative, because at that time. The news that was on at that time was defection. This one is running to PDP, that one is running to APC. I said, listen, let's take this narrative from them. Let's do something new. Unfortunately, that wasn't bought. And so the guys that drove the process insisted that we needed to take that decision very quickly. I also said that, listen, this thing is not what you need to agree very, very urgently. there wasn't that urgency there, in my own view.
So you disagree with the outcome?
Yeah, so again, so when I kept going on that, they had a kind of vote in-house, you know, in the second meeting, and the people who felt that we needed to take decision in August 30, something we started on July 31st, in under 30 days we should take decision. They won. They won the vote. That's the truth. And I said, look, I can't do this anymore. You know, and someone like myself, Jai Gaskia left. Of course, Shore attended only one meeting at the beginning and made it clear that I wasn't going into any coalition. The man probably, I don't know, maybe he read the tea leaves. So, but I attended one more meeting at which I saw that this wasn't going to. And look, that's what it has ended up in a fiasco. Because by every means, if you ask me, I don't think this is the time for someone to say you're knocking out a Kingsley Moghalu from the race, except we don't want the ideas that the man has to espouse. And the man has a lot of great ideas to espouse. You don't do that. You know, so I told them, listen, there's nothing wrong if we stretch this thing and choose somebody in January. You choose in January, you have a month to consolidate. Everybody say, listen, let's rally around this guy in January. This is not, I'm sorry to say, this is not Big Brother. This is not Project Fame. This is not some entertainment show. How can you go and make a decision without even letting Nigerians know what these guys have to offer? Again, let me tell you, almost none of them have this kind of document.
No, we will still come back to that document.
Almost none of them.
You are the founder of the Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party.
Absolutely.
You are the chairman. You are the chairman of the party.
You know, let me not say I'm the founder. I don't want to be proud.
You are the chairman of the party.
By God's grace.
You are the presidential candidate.
Not candidate, absolutely not. Of course, Dr. Abati, you know the difference between candidate and aspirant.
Okay, you are the presidential aspirant.
One of the presidential aspirants.
Okay, what structures do you have on the ground? Because to win an election, you must have structures.
So let me say
how do you expect ANRP to contest against PDP, APC, ABGA?
This is my turf, you know. It's the kind of thing I like to discuss. So, yeah, by God's grace, I battered the idea and quickly called people together to say, guys, let's do this together. Yes, I'm one of the presidential aspirants. There's someone else who had even been campaigning within the party for almost a year before I started, before I started doing my campaign, because I gave the free hand to say, guys, we need to do this together. And when we started the idea, the strategy was we needed to have a scenario where a lot of people can compete on the platform of this party, you know. So just like Gani formed NCP and contested on NCP, anyone going into politics and taking the risk of forming a party, most of the time, it's not because you just want to have a nice little party by the side that happens to be the model party. How does it become the model party? It's because you want to get involved in governance. And it's also about the urgency of now. People seem not to understand that this country, as we speak, is an expired country. I mean, the little growth of 1.5% you see in GDP is powered by a recovery in crude oil prices and a lot of borrowing. And we just went and signed another $326 million in China. When Macron came here, we signed $475 million. These guys are borrowing like never. How can we have taken the debt of this country, total debt, from 9 trillion when Jonathan left to 22, 23 trillion within 3-4 years? And so we have actually mortgaged the future of our children. These people here have borrowed money for the next 30, 40 years. So, so basically, I'm the only, if you like, call it a founder of a party who has allowed anybody within the party to contest against him in a presidential election. Gani didn't do it as much as, you know, I could never measure up to Gani in terms of integrity and ethics. You know, that's a great man. But he never did it. He formed this party, he contested. Shore is doing it as well. You know, nobody can dare to say they're contesting against Shore. So sometimes some people try to take this for granted, but I'm no fool. But again, all I wanted is, listen, I want people to contest against, you know, let's contest against each other, but on the basis of ideas. So how do we intend to get the structure right? 2 things. Number one, you see, it took us 1 year to register this party. Some people have got it a bit easier, but they never gave us a chance, including some of the people in INEC. Never gave us a chance. We said, these young people. When we started in 2016, most Nigerian youth were not thinking of politics. They weren't. You know, so in that way, I was a pioneer. You know, so when we started, now we quickly moved. When we got our certificate on the 10th of January this year, by 17th of February, 5 weeks after exactly, we were doing our national convention at Eagle Square in Abuja. We had about 4,000 people there. Apart from APC and PDP, it's only ANRP that has held this convention to date in Eagle Square. We felt this is Eagle Square, it is a Nigerian square. You can see that they blocked Kwakwanso declaring from there. But for us, they gave us a full, it was
maybe because
almost,
they think you don't pose a threat.
which is great, you know, sometimes, you know, until we begin to become significant. You can see the momentum we're gaining now. So what we do, our national convention, putting all our national ESCO, you know, fully in place. And a month after that, we started our state ESCO. As I'm talking to you now, we have our state ESCO. We've done our state congresses in 32 states around the country. It's a good thing to build on. And we started going down to the ward ESCOs and the local government ESCOs as well. We know that, look, you can't win anything except to build those structures. However, the funny thing about politics, which is we're having to learn, you know, on the job now, is that political parties are built from top down. In the beginning,
bottom up?
Yes, that's the reality. You know, I could write a book on it. You build it from top down. If you don't have a tight national ESCO, you can't have a tight state ESCO. It's the guys in the national ESCO that will go and build the state. When you do the state ESCOs, the guys at the state will go and build the local government. Then when you now build down to the ward, subsequently, you now start to grow from the ward level. However, if your ethos, your ethos, your ideology, and every other thing is not together at a national level, you could never get it right.
Well, let me put this to you. We've had at least 2 guests on this program who said, yes, it's a good thing that we have not too young to run movement. We have a lot of young people. I thought the number was 42. You say it's over 70 now. So every young man, every young lady say they want to be president.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of those guests told us that, look, these young people, they should go and start at the level of the local government.
The person doesn't know it's
House of Assembly, you know, House of Reps, and then you grow. But, you know, the first thing you want to do is to be president of Nigeria.
Absolutely, because the problem with Nigeria now, you're a researcher, you know, you're one of the most intelligent writers in the world, not even Nigeria.
Thank you.
So I mean, you need to follow Dr. Abati, fantastic man. Though we have differences with him once in a while, anyway, but not today. Anyway, so so to a large extent, the problem with Nigeria is not at the local level. We're talking of vision in here. I mean, Viber Boa was here just now,
yes.
And Dr. Abati asked him a question. He said, "Look, so what do you think went wrong?" Even though he didn't answer that question. So what do you think went wrong that we couldn't... Look, like, for example, take our educational sector and our power sector. Until the day our educational sector is what will fix our power sector. People like Boa will come, they will bring their own ideas and startups and so on, you know. But until the day that Nigerian government or Nigerian leaders know that you have to go to the universities and the polytechnic and incentivize the electronic and electric engineering department with even sometimes small amounts, $100,000, which is 30 million naira or thereabout, we'll do a lot of magic there, all right? And you say, listen, go to the nearest village to you and power that village one bulb at a time. 1948, we formed University of Ibadan. 70 years today exactly. Nigeria cannot manufacture a bulb. And I mean that we're not talking, if you have to import the machine or the technology from abroad to come and manufacture the bulb here, it's not your own manufacturing. Because the moment that machine breaks down, you need to import another one to get this work going. So what we need, the problem with Nigeria is a problem of visioning. Where should we be as a people, right? It's not what you do at the state assembly. It's not what you do at the national assembly. And then, come to think of it, people are talking of restructuring and so on. I wouldn't want to go into the National Assembly right now because I believe that the National Assembly should either be a part-time work or one of them need to go. Senegal abrogated his Senate and expanded his House of Representatives by about 15 more seats, by, you know, giving those seats to people in diaspora. That is thinking. That's a country that's kind of trying to be progressive, you know. And I was in the House of Lords in 2013 in the UK, and I interacted with there's a lord from I think he represents Peckham or somewhere, you know. It's a kind of black man. I think it's Jamaican, you know. I forgot his name now. And you know, I got to understand that the only remuneration for the lords is their sitting allowance of £150 per sitting. If you don't come, you don't earn. You know, it used to be £300 when the recession came. They went to them and say, Baba, you know, and that's their Senate. And look, It is ridiculous. The people of the world are watching this country and wondering what is wrong with the people of this country.
Okay, let's talk about...
So just a minute. So things like, how do you get this? How do we force the discussion on our National Assembly and the money that this thing is taking from us? Equally at the State Assembly. How do we force the discussion? How do we force the discussion on restructuring, for example? I believe that, my theory, and which is actually a fact, that the issue of restructuring is a recent phenomenon. 1999 to date, Nigeria stopped thinking and Nigeria stopped restructuring. Before 1999, this country was always restructuring. We started off 1900, 1st of January was the day that we were sold by the Royal Niger Company for £859,000 to the British government because they could not cope anymore with the incursions from the French in the north of Nigeria, which is now the Niger, and in the east, northeast, from the Germans. So they sold the entire territory as if they were selling a slave on a slab. In 1914, we were amalgamated. In 1954, we became known as the Federation of Nigeria. Of Nigeria, all right? And 1966, we had the military incursion in politics, and everything changed. Unitarism came in. Aguirre wrote here and said, listen, because they were military boys, jackboot, they wanted everything to come from the center. You can see the way we were restructuring. 1967, a war was going to break out. Yakubu Gowon created 12 states. We moved away from the regional thing. Restructure, this is a major restructuring. And then we have 12 states, 18 states, 30 states, 36 states. After that, we stopped. So right now, are we going to create more states? Are we going to reduce the states since most of them are not viable? That's the discussion we need to force. These are presidential issues to discuss. Even the things like allocation formula. This thing has morphed over time. All right, derivation formula became 13% in 1999. Since then, no other conversation is going on. So one of the things I'm proposing, sorry, Doctor, one of the things I'm proposing in my own presidency is, listen, we need to move away from this 54% in the federal, 26% for state, 20% for local government, because the next part of growth is actually in the local government. And I'm proposing that we should give that level 40%, give the state 35%, and keep 25% at the federal level. However, that 40% must be jointly managed by a team of federal, state, and local government. Because right now, the states are sitting on the local government by invoking something called joint account inside the Constitution, which is constitutional. But is it letting Nigeria grow? No, it's not. So
well,
those are the kind of
conversation. You've been holding that document.
Yes, sir.
Titled Manifesto.
Yeah, it's
the Revolution of
Ideas. Yeah.
Is it possible for you to reduce the content in just about a minute, to bullet points of what you want to engage Nigerians with? Say your 5-point agenda, your 7-point agenda, or maybe your 10-point agenda.
Okay, basically, what I try to run away from those 10 whatever points and so on. But one thing I've said is this: my involvement is about facts and figures, all right? Facts and figures-based development. We have the data, we have the big data, and all of that. It's about the urgency of now. It's about busting the myths. I said that Nigeria should be growing at 15% to 20%, right? 15 to 20% is what we should calibrate in our growth. Someone say, oh, I've met many economists like me. Who says it's not possible?
With a monocultural economy?
Absolutely. Then you talk about diversification. Monoculture, because we're focused on the crude oil. And we have absolutely no input in actually that crude oil. I don't know if you have time to go into that. We have no input. We can't manufacture a drill bit. So what you need to do is to make the economy interact with each other, and I'll get to that point, sir. There's something I call the Fetch initiative. So we're talking about busting the myth, 15% growth. Because, if we have inflation at 11% presently, down from almost 20%, we have interest rates in the banks at around 25 to 30%, and then we're growing at 1.5%. When our population is growing at 3%, we're in trouble, serious trouble. So you see, the price of double-digit inflation and double-digit interest rate should be double-digit growth. You see, underdevelopment is an opportunity for growth. That's what we don't understand. Just as education is not meant to be a victim, but a solution provider. So education is meant to be fixing electricity, meant to be fixing infrastructure, meant to be fixing agriculture. Netherlands is the second largest exporter of food in the world. Netherlands is less in size than Niger State, as it were, 42,000 square kilometers, less than Niger State, So I believe that we can get this done. So, and also about systems thinking, a way that connects different aspects of the economy to each other. And so I have this Fetch initiative that the irreducible minimum that we should should concentrate on in order to diversify the economy. And diversification of economy is actually about how several aspects of the economy will interact with each other. Is number one, we should prioritize feeding ourselves by putting bringing science into agriculture. There's no reason why the government should not be investing in greenhouses for our local farmers. People are talking vertical farming now. Go to Netherlands and other places. People plant on the ground, they plant in media, they plant on the roof. Several layers. And within these square meters of this place, you'll be shocked how much you're bringing in. And we have the scientists in the university. So it's about the gown meeting the town and the crown. You know, so that's one. Number two, sir, is that we must ensure, we must ensure our own security. All right, and we must begin to ensure our own security. Number one, what we can do about that is to employ a lot of young people in light security work to secure their country, even if it's about information gathering. We have to do that. Before I continue, I've only done 2 out of the fetch.
No,
all right, I'll come back to that.
We don't have more time. Oh. Now, you are from the Southwest, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Now, do you see the possibility of somebody from the Southwest emerging as president in 2019, when there seems to be a consensus that if there is anybody going to replace President Buhari, the person must come from somewhere in the north?
I don't know about
given that. Given Nigerian geopolitics.
First of all, I'll speak very quickly now so I can cover what I need to cover. So the first thing is that the so-called consensus is a PDP-APC affair. In fact, it's a PDP affair. And, they have all their north here, south there. In fact, sometimes they don't even ask themselves, what is this person bringing to the table? And I think that, look, our young party and the young people like me, we can't be boxed into a corner with the kind of arrangement that some of these people have made. In the past, whether you're from southwest, southeast, south, wherever, or not anywhere, if you have the best idea, the people of this country, the young people of this country should be voting for you based on your ideas.
Members of the APC have been saying there's no alternative to President Buhari. Another way of saying there is no vacancy in Aso Villa in 2019. And yet you are so enthusiastic and passionate.
You see, it's not the members of the APC that will determine. It's the people of Nigeria. So again, it depends on... I mean, if I ask the people in your studio here, they probably will vote for me before they vote for Buhari.
You're already campaigning here.
Yeah, well, okay, we're not campaigning. I can't allow that yet. So you see, the point is this. Look, let Buhari do his thing, right? But you see, I say again, I have won because some of these ideas that I'm driving must win and are winning. Number 3, I've talked about ensuring our own security. That means we must go back and start building some capacity in that area. Nigeria gave $500 million to Donald Trump, who ended up saying that the president was lifeless. In that same trip, he collected $500 million from us for Tucano aircraft that will be delivered in 2020, wow, when we're not sure that they're going to be relevant to our problems. Number 3 is that we must tidy up after ourselves. There's tremendous amount of opportunities in the environmental sector in this country, whether you're talking of recycling, but more importantly in terms of rewiring us. Dr. Abati, Nigeria is living a shameful life right now. 70-80 million of our people defecate outside, live in conditions that are not even worthy of human existence. And the world is judging us on that. And the world is right to judge us on that. You don't tell them to come here and go to Banana Island. I mean, it's not their business, your Banana Island, and now you are showing how much money people have. Very quickly, our textile sector needs to be fixed as well, whether we like it or not. That was the biggest challenge that Mahatma Gandhi had in India. And lastly, we must house ourselves. And by that, I'm proposing a kind of rural renewal, beyond urban renewal. Since 1960, this country has never had any plans whatsoever for those people who live in the villages in terms of their housing. And I think that they are Nigerians as well, and we need to do something about it.
I'm sure we can use the whole day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I like your energy, your passion, your enthusiasm.
And you have so much to say. We've not even talked about the economics of Nigeria.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
economic, think about 15-20% growth is what we should be doing in this. And we should be prioritizing taking 70 million people out of poverty. If we can do that, this economy will blow. We can double the GDP of this country in 3 years. Now is the time to think about what does not exist and ask why not.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this.
Great pleasure having you on the morning show.
That's all from Tope Fasua. Up next, one of the foremost event organizers here in Lagos, Ezekiel Adamu, will be joining us to discuss the events economy in Nigeria. But before then, we'll take a short break on the morning show. Don't go away.